For 10 years, he ran the same corner store in the neighborhood. Customers knew him only as the friendly old store owner Tony, until that night when armed robbers entered his shop. That's when the neighborhood learned who Tony really was. Welcome to Everyday People. Before we begin this powerful story of hidden identity, courage, and forgotten heroism, tell me in the comments where you're watching from today, and if you believe stories like this need to be told. Hit that subscribe button and help us share these stories. In Brooklyn's Crown Heights neighborhood on 5th Avenue, there was a small corner store, Tony's Corner Store. It was like the heart of the neighborhood. Tony Rosetti, 65 years old, Italian-American, a friendly man with a warm smile. Every morning he'd open at 6 a.m., work until 10 p.m. Never took vacation, never called in sick, never ran late. The neighborhood loved him. He'd give candy to kids, extend credit to elderly customers, never turned anyone away. He was the classic neighborhood bodega owner. For 10 years he maintained the same routine, never complained, just quietly did his job. Customers knew him simply as Uncle Tony. But if anyone paid attention, they'd notice Tony had strange habits. For example, Tony knew every corner of his store by heart. Not just the shelves, but every exit route, every window, every place someone could hide. Like he'd planned his store for defensive purposes. And customers had noticed that Tony carefully examined every new person who entered his store. Not just out of politeness, but like he was evaluating them, checking their hands, their posture, their eyes. Neighbor Maria had once seen the store closed late at night, but lights were on inside. Tony was busy with something in the back room. When she asked the next day, Tony had said, bookkeeping. But there were no account books on the table. And another day, when young gang member Jason tried to cause trouble in his store, Tony's attitude was very clear. He'd simply said, out. But the authority in his voice had silenced Jason immediately. There were things Tony kept under his register that caught people's attention. A radio-like device, thick envelopes full of documents, and strangest of all, old photos of unidentified people. One day, neighbor police officer Mike asked Tony for change and saw under the register. There were very strange things inside. Tony, what's this radio for? He'd asked. Old hobby, Tony had said. Used to do amateur radio. But Mike realized that radio was different from civilian band. It looked professional, military style. And another day, Maria had seen the old scar on Tony's arm. How did that happen, Uncle Tony? Accident in my youth, Tony had said. But the shape of the scar was very specific. It looked like a bullet wound. It was a cold November night. Past 9 p.m., Tony was preparing to close the store. The last customers had left. He was organizing the shelves. Snow was falling outside. The streets were quiet. Tony was counting the register as usual, preparing for the next day. That's when 3 people entered through the store door. When Tony looked up, his stomach dropped. These weren't customers. All 3 were young. All 3 looked agitated. One had a sports bag. Another had a suspicious bulge in his pocket. The third stayed near the door, watching outside. Tony understood immediately. This was a robbery. Store's closed, guys, Tony said in a calm voice. No, it's not, said the oldest among them. Open the register. Tony's heart raced, but his face showed no change. 40 years of experience kicked in. No problem, he said. Not much money, but you can take it. He started opening the register, but actually he was pressing a button under the register. Silent alarm system. The robber approached. Hurry up, old man. That's when Tony's hand reached under the register. But what he pulled out wasn't money. What suddenly appeared in Tony's hand surprised the robbers. Something small, black, professional-looking. It wasn't a phone, it wasn't a gun, but it looked very familiar. Central, this is Unit 47, Tony said into the device. His voice had completely changed. The friendly store owner was gone. Armed robbery, Crown Heights, 5th Avenue, 1247. 3 suspects. Situation under control. The robbers froze. What was happening? Who the hell is this guy? Shouted the youngest. Tony smiled, but this smile wasn't the kind he showed his customers. It was cold, experienced, dangerous. Retired, he said slowly. NYPD Undercover Division, 25 years, and you just made a very big mistake. Police arrived 3 minutes later. 3 robbers were on the ground. None were injured, but they couldn't move. Nobody saw exactly how Tony neutralized them. When the police commissioner approached Tony, he said, Detective Rosetti, I recognize you. From Narcotics Division, right? The neighbors were shocked. For 10 years, the man they'd lived beside, done daily shopping with, was actually a retired police detective. Maria couldn't help but ask, "Uncle Tony, why didn't you ever tell us?" Tony answered with his old smile, "Because I'm retired. I'm just Tony now, but my duty to protect my neighborhood never ended." After that night, Tony stayed the same, but the neighborhood changed. Everyone now looked at him differently. He still greets customers with the same warm smile, still gives candy to children with the same kindness, still talks to elderly customers with the same patience. But now the neighborhood knew that Tony wasn't just a store owner. In every movement, every glance, there were those years of experience, that protective instinct, that alert waiting, that tireless endurance. It all made sense now. Police Officer Mike asked one day, "Why do you still work here, Tony?" Tony's answer was simple, "Because this is my neighborhood. These people are my family. I can protect them." And so we learned that sometimes the greatest protectors are the people we just buy our daily groceries from. Sometimes the strongest heroes are the ones who appear to just be stocking shelves. Now I ask you, have you ever met someone like Tony? Someone who seemed ordinary but had extraordinary stories hidden in their past? Write their name in the comments, share their stories. Because here at Everyday People, we continue to give voice to hidden protectors. If this story touched you, subscribe, share, and help ensure these quiet guardians are never forgotten. See you in the next story. And remember, if you see someone working quietly with a friendly face around you, look closer. Their past might be more interesting than you could ever imagine.